All right, just trying to figure out how to do all these here. Where's Troy? There, Donovan. I'm going to do something. Donovan, I'm going to make you host here. And then you can make Troy. Oh, there's Troy. Here.
They weren't opening, so I was coming to tell you they weren't opening.
All right.
And then they opened.
Your host. See ya. You can make other co-hosts, Troy, now. You should be able to.
Donovan. And everybody else. Hi, everyone. How's it going? There's Don.
We had a pretty good discussion going on about this particular topic in the lobby.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great segue to what we're talking about today.
And then,
I feel like a lot of people said what's on my mind too.
Don, thanks for you got in obviously.
Yes, I did. Had to register. Thanks for having me.
If it weren't for the ice storm warning, I might have been able to do my attendance in our classroom in the round.
all right, so we'll get started, and I mean, like Don was saying, we did have a bit of a conversation going already, so I don't really want to take too much time. We'll just kind of maybe can continue on that theme, but just kind of let everybody take a second to kind of introduce themselves and tell us where they're from, and why don't we start with Don? I guess it's Don DeMello, not Donovan, I guess, because that could be a little confusing.
All right. I'm Don DeMello with Oregon State University. I am the Associate Director for Academic Technology, specifically classroom presentation systems. That includes labs and conference rooms as well. So got quite the support team here, and we do remote and on-site support.
And I guess we'll go to the other Donovan.
Donovan Monday, West Virginia University. I am UCC administrator, classroom support, Zoom admin, Teams admin, everything that doesn't fall under normal help desk duties comes to our office. So.
All right, and Craig, what about you?
Hi, my name is Craig Underwood. I'm from Moravian University in Eastern Pennsylvania. I'm the director of AV engineering. And I'm here to represent the small schools because our FTE is under 3,000. So I think it'll be interesting to see how we compare with the big guys here.
All right, great. So, just I guess a brief about the panel. It's just about, AV support from home, what we can and can't do, that kind of thing. And I'm sure we all have kind of different thoughts on the subject. So I guess let's just keep going with that conversation we were having in the chat, right? So what can we do from home? Like what kind of support can, and not just from home, remotely, can I sit in my desk and do this work? What kind of tools are we using? Those kind of things. I don't know, Don, you want to get us started?
Absolutely. So remote support actually happens at home and on site if you're like ours. I think you need to define what your remote support is like. From home, obviously, the tool sets may vary. You mentioned tools. The tool sets vary, but the key is having the equipment that you can access remotely, whether there's internal tools which you're using, software applications. It depends on how you're interfacing with things and how you're also adhering to your university's network policies and security policies. Those have to be in place first, have that framework first. But no matter how you support, I'm an advocate that you have to have some boots on the ground somewhere. So even though you have that tier, we have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. I'm sure everybody have different definitions, but we're a proponent that you have to have boots on the ground because classes are like live events. I think we can all agree with that. But remote support can happen. The biggest thing is the flexibility now. If you have a staff member that can't make it in, guess what? They can still work from home because they can still provide that support model for us on that tier 1 support. That's my first introduction, but I'm sure there's many more aspects to it for everybody else.
Sure, I'll jump in and say that I think if you're talking about supporting AV from home, you could almost look at that as, well, you want to try to be able to do that. And of course, you always need the boots on the ground. But even just taking a different look at it, if you aim for AV at home, we know we can't do everything from home. Like you can't swap out a projector that goes bad, or a video switcher that fails, or some other hardware component that you physically need to be there to swap out. But a lot of what we do here at Moravian is, we'll send work studies out, for example, to go out to a classroom. If they have a classroom call, they'll run out if we can't immediately solve something remotely, and they'll be able to be our eyes in the field. And then back at my office, they can just call me or text me like, hey, what are you seeing? And so we can feed information back and forth. And now I can remotely go in there and reset some things, and without having to pack up my laptop, go over there, connect. So it just kind of adds to the number of people that can be out doing things at any given time. So even if it's not complete from home, the advantages of making things remote available helps even if you are on site.
Yeah, I totally agree. With our group, we have some of us like myself who are 90 to 95% at home. And then we have a set of workers that are rotate for in-person support and then at home support. So at any given time, there's 1 or 2 people that are on site, as well as the 5 or 6 people that are at home answering phones and doing remote support. But it all comes down to, what you have available to help your group, to, access to your, to your network, to your gear remotely, and, the relationship you have with your networking team, allowing those things to happen. And then how you've built up your classrooms. The more complex classrooms, the more gear that's involved, the harder it is to do a remote support for that. So streamlining your classrooms to just what is needed, and being able to remote manage all of those things is the only way to get it done. But you're never going to be 100% from home. But like myself, I can get to that 90, 95%. To where I'm only on site to like the major outages or the renovations or things like that.
Okay.
Donovan hit a really good point there. I want to point on that, and that's simplifying what you're doing out there that you're going to support remotely. We know, many of you know, with control processors, interfaces, we can do everything in a room, in a space. We can do light control, shade control, HVAC control, automatic screens lowering, going up. All that can happen, and it's nice to have. But once you start adding more and more and more, then your support becomes more and more intricate, more finite. And if you can focus on the primary few things, it's easier to support those.
Yeah, absolutely. Less failure points is definitely easier to manage, right? So everybody mentioned having boots on the ground, and I know Don mentioned having tiers of service. So how do we utilize students in that respect? Are we all utilizing student workers? I know that's students are our first line of defense. They typically answer our calls and do a lot of our routine maintenance. I'm not sure how are you guys utilizing them?
Well, here at Moravian,
go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Craig. Sorry, we'll speak.
All right, sure. So at Moravian, we have a combined IT and AV help desk. So pretty much any trouble call that comes in is funneled through our IT help desk. And then if they can't solve it within the first couple of minutes, they escalate it up to me, or another full-time professional tech. So they kind of act as the again if they can quick run out and do something. They're the first responders. So that's pretty much what our work studies are for us. I don't have direct management control of them because they are part of the IT help desk and we're sort of adjacent to them. So we don't really have our own classroom technology workforce. But we hope to give them enough info to do the real basic quick things. And then if they can't, then they escalate it to me.
Here at Oregon State, we rely, I'm going to go back to that definition of tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, so you can understand how OSU develops theirs. Our tier 1 is obviously that first line, that first phone call that comes in. That's where the remote tools will come in. Tier 2 is when we have to actually dispatch someone to the space that physically has to go to the space live during the class, take care of it. And our tier 3 it's a follow-up. we're either scheduling a later time after class or during a break to go investigate what the incident response is. But the students are huge in what we do. And the dynamics here at Oregon State is our tier 1 support. We do have a central help desk. They're option 2 on the phone. We're option 1. But in our learning spaces, we have ring down phones that ring directly to our presentation support center. We don't call it a help desk. It's presentation support. That's how they answer the phone. So we can delineate between a help desk and presentation support. So that's that first line defense coming in. So students are huge because they're just on the other side of my wall here. So they can come over and ask a professional staff member to get to tier 2 quickly. There's no transfer of a phone call, another building. We're in the same vicinity, but that's just how we're built out.
Yeah, we don't use student workers at all. We have just a rotating staff that is on site. So we've never had student workers. We've never had any kind of work studies or anything like that. It's always been our AV staff.
I want to point out one of the things that we tout here, and Chris Decker. Hi, Chris. You can wave. There he is. Something I took from Dartmouth College, my time there. We all know we're reactive. Calls come in, we react to things. So administration always asks myself, how are you proactive? Well, like many of you, you probably service your rooms during breaks at some point during the year, imaging and so forth. Our student workers at a support desk, we also schedule a couple of them to go out each hour and go service and test 2 or 3 rooms each hour on the day. So we're visiting spaces weekly, and that's our way of being proactive. Yesterday was a good example. I was with one of our CISO officers, and a ticket came in with a document camera that somebody found during surfacing. It was a great example of how we were proactive, getting the new document camera in place, operational, and not impacting classes. So I just want to throw that out there. That's where we utilize our students, and that helps for funding.
Having hot swappable gear, having a standardization in your classroom, and having one spare of each that literally can be hot swapped at any given time. That is absolutely necessary.
Yeah, totally agree. And Don, you bring up a great point of having that proactive checking of the classrooms. I can't believe I forgot to mention, probably because of staffing issues and with the past couple of years, we used to have a more robust group of students that would go out and either every weekday or at least every weekend, go through and check all the features and functions of every classroom, or as many as they could get to, just to see, is everything working okay? Or our remote tools can't diagnose everything. So it's good to have eyes in the classroom to see, my cloud console says that this classroom is fine, that there's no errors. But when I go in there, something is, there's some weird error message on the screen that isn't being picked up. So yeah, absolutely. Having people just proactively check it. And that's a real simple thing. You just give someone a checklist, say, all right, go out to the classroom, check these things. If it looks okay, great, go to the next room and just spend 2-3 minutes in every space to make sure everything's all good.
Yeah, and we have a battery schedule. We go and put batteries in the rooms every week, and we have a reboot schedule. We have a shutdown schedule on our management platform. So we have all those things in place as well too. So it's that helps out a ton, just having, well, no one's been in that room for 6 weeks. So we've had eyes on that room every week.
I know we've talked about some tools, right? So what kind of tools make this process work easier? I know, we're starting to experiment with IP power controllers and being able to control power remotely. I think that's been very useful. Are there any other kind of tools that you guys utilize in this regard?
I'll go. Sure. That's right. Just keep jumping in, right? So there's 2 things that I use regularly. Of course, with our network team, they actually give us a remote access point. So I have an access point here in my house that phones home to our university network. So I fire up my laptop and I see, as if I was on campus, I have the Wi-Fi right here. So that's been tremendously helpful. I don't have to worry about logging into a VPN client or having that running in the background. So that's been great. The IP power, I would love to do more of that. I'm kind of in the once bitten, twice shy club because I had a whole fleet of remotely managed power outlets that I ended up having within 3 years a 40% failure rate of them. So I had to rip them out, and they were actually causing more problems than they were solving. So the idea of, oh yeah, I can just turn it off and back on from anywhere, right? But unfortunately, when it shuts everything off and you can't get anything to turn on, that was a problem. So I would love to have a HETMA approved IP power outlet there. Little plug there. So
Yeah.
I would certainly look at those. So
manufacturers take note.
Yeah, that's funny you should mention that. Coming. I have and I don't want to bore anybody with graphics, but I did create a small graphic of my work from home diagram. You guys see that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So we actually utilize the Extreme AP302W, which is a VPN client back to our network. So I have my IP desk phone because there's a PoE port on it. I have my encrypted wireless networks here that I can troubleshoot Bonjour and things like that for Apple TVs and Solstice pods and those kind of things. I have an AV VLAN port that is connected to a switch here that I can lab gear up in my house. And then I have a standard enterprise wired connection to my laptop. So having this piece of gear here, this Extreme Wireless AP, that phone's home, I don't have to do anything. It's already been configured by networking. I just plug stuff up, and it's like I'm sitting in my office on campus. That kind of setup has made my job so much better. So as I'm not trying to VPN, I'm not using VMs to get into the AV VLAN. I'm not VPN, a VPN on my laptop. I can actually have a desk phone, so I'm not trying to use soft clients over Zoom, over Teams, over all the 12 different versions that are out there right now. So that kind of gear, being able to do that, has been, game changing for us from work from home. And remote power, being able to remotely reboot something, if you can go into your control processor, whatever it may be, and do a reboot. Sometimes that doesn't get it done. Sometimes you need to do a hard reboot on it. Having that remote power option, having, access to all of your different devices, being able to switch your DSPs, your control processors, getting, remote touch panel access, all of those kinds of things. Once you get all that set up, work from home becomes much easier.
There you go. Yeah, we're old school. I require my guys to use VPN to get in there, but we have soft phones that they transfer their phones to their computers. So it's all inclusive, but it allows them to be flexible. They don't have to be just at home. If they're for some reason at their in-laws' house, or if they're skiing and want to work, I don't know. But the flexibility, but the tool set's there. Obviously, Craig, I understand. I went through a couple different variants of IP control with the same manufacturer, but they honored all the bad ones. So yeah, when they die, they die. But it goes back to what we said earlier. You have to have hot spares on the shelf, and you have to monitor them. But again, there's different applications. I mean, we use Screen Connect. We've used different things to connect to computers in the past. We're currently using Screen Connect. I find that Overseer is a freeware that you can monitor all your IP controllable devices as well. We're a Crestron house, so we use Fusion. Even though we have different processors, there's different variances we have to use to connect to things. But again, it's the versatility of the tool set for your technicians. And again, the boots on the ground is huge. You have to have somebody here on site. But Oregon State promotes the flexibility of the work environment. While we allow remote support from home, it's not our primary mode of support. We're here on campus. But the flexibility is the huge thing, especially in today, allowing people to work from home, support from home, and not be forced to take vacation or sick leave because of the inability to come in. They have that opportunity to do it. So that's the biggest thing that we've come out of this, is that remote support. We've always been doing it, but we've extended that from home by using software applications on our computer for our soft phones, and utilizing VPN with the current tool sets we have on campus, which can go anywhere, any state.
That's interesting to me too, because when COVID hit, all of us went home, right? And then as we started to trickle back in to having some classes, and we were doing mostly Zoom support at that point, or whatever LMS version that we have, So now that there are classes that are coming back, how many of you guys are seeing a complete return to class? Because in our world, we see that there are definitely classes happening on campus, but almost all of them have that hybrid component now. And some of them have decided that they just preferred the remote version of the class and they do over Zoom. So our room utilization reports have gone way down, where they're scheduled, but there's really not people in there. Are you guys finding that too?
Oregon State was one of the benefactors in the nation. Our enrollment actually went up this year. Was the only one in our state. Yeah, we went up. And so we have, people are remote, don't get me wrong, but I would say probably 75% are in the classrooms on campus right now. It's pretty high. Enough to where I put a mask on to go into a room because I've got 200 students. I don't know where they've been. So that's the only time I mask up is when I go into a room with a bunch of people I don't know.
And yes, Chris, it is 2020. We slow rolled our back in, we didn't come back all at once. We came back later. West Virginia got COVID last, and we've kicked it out last. So we were behind the curve for most of that. So where we've just now starting to really get back into the full swing of on-campus classes back to normal again. There's still places in our campus that are full masked. So that's where we still sit at the moment. So yes, we're behind. We're always behind. It's West Virginia. So.
Yeah, I see a comment in the chat there from Jeremy Garrick at University of Michigan saying that in his opinion, rebooting a piece of hardware, if it needs it multiple times in a year, doesn't want it in the system. And I get that, Jeremy, but if you're familiar with handshaking with digital technology, sometimes you have to, you can tell someone to log off and log back on to reestablish a handshake. But sometimes in the moment in class, they don't want to do that. So if you have access to turn off a receiver or a transmitter or reboot a switch to break that handshake that didn't happen and reestablish it, that's when you don't want to be deceived by, hey, it's a failure of the system. That's just Hollywood stepping into our area. We all know about HECP compliancy, EDID settings, right? I would hope you do and understand that. But in digital world, you've got to be precise and exact. And if it's not, it says no image. So there's times when rebooting can be beneficial. It's not a bad gear. It's just bad communication in the digital realm.
Yeah, totally agree. And so in terms of what Moravian's done, like we only closed back in 2020 in the beginning when our governor said we had to. We stayed till the bitter end. And we reopened as soon as we could. We still had in-person classes in fall of 2020. And so, of course, we still had a whole bunch of online only. But I'd say we've been, I think this academic year, 22-23 is the first, I think, that we've been really fully back to normal, that it's felt, as pre-pandemic as possible. But of course, with all those lessons learned, from going through all this. So I think, let's see, I did want to comment on something that Chris had mentioned about UPSs. So I feel UPSs are kind of like the lesser of two evils. We have all our UPSs monitored through cloud management. So if the UPSs crap out, we're going to find out. But in our area, we have such poor power quality, and between our network processors, our network switches and our AV processors taking at least 5 minutes to boot up, we find it's worth having that UPS as, let me put it this way. We have fewer issues with UPSs than we do with the interruption of minute power glitches causing bigger issues across campus. So yeah, it is a tough one because we do certainly have our share of problems with UPSs too, but if the classroom goes down and network switch goes down, then we can't remote in to service it. So it's 6 of 1. Which evil do you prefer, right?
The older the building, the more important a UPS is.
Absolutely. We have a lot of old buildings. So.
Frank had a question there, Frank? You're going to ask something there.
This Frank?
Absolutely, Frank. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, brother. How are you? Not so much a question. It was just sitting here. I'm taking it all in, and I'm getting a little bit of each one of your schools. As most people on the call, if anybody doesn't know me, I'm Frank from University of Nevada, Las Vegas. So we have a pretty robust campus. It's a pretty big school. We have a lot of classrooms, and we have a lot of different, I guess you could say, flavor support. We have to support classrooms, conference rooms, digital signage. We don't do events, thank God. But we have to support the majority of our stuff on campus because the majority of our campus is on campus. We're a brick and mortar school. We have a very small online presence. So therefore, some boots on the ground are absolutely required. And right now the university himself, the president, just said the other day in our State of Union, we are a brick and mortar campus. We need you to get back on campus. We're already at 95% classes on campus. How much more on campus do we have to be? So it's to me, it's like, I see all the support models you guys have, and we take a little bit of each one of your schools and we do that for ourselves. And I'm just curious on what, other schools are doing when it comes to that, not just remote support. We know the buzzwords and what people are doing, but what do you actually do to get your buy-in from your team when you don't necessarily have, let's call it what it is, fairness between certain people that are not always on campus when the people that are on campus are bailing out the people that are not on campus? And we'll just light that fire and walk away.
It's a safe space, everybody. Safe space.
Well, I'll say I'm actually on campus most of the time because of that. It's people that know me also know that I don't really enjoy working from home. I need that separation. So, I mean, I'm kind of there anyway. And, some people that do work from home, you can tell there is some resentment if they're working from home, they're supporting from home, and then someone has to run out to a classroom. They're like, oh, I have to go out in the rain and sleep, but somebody else doesn't. So, there is a fine balance. I don't really have that. I know I don't have an answer, but I think if there's at least a rotation of who can, if there's a support team, then, let's rotate who can and who can support from home. Just try and make it as fair as possible and just put that in the job description.
Our model, and we try to keep it as fair as possible. And I think it helps too that, even though I'm not part of that rotation, but if there is an outage or there's something big that goes on, I have no problem running across town to campus and jumping in and getting involved. And I think they know that part too. So, just having that kind of attitude where, if it's a privilege for me, I count it as a privilege for me to be at home, right? I'm able to work in my office. I'm able to be here with my son who's online school. I can, monitor him. I consider that a privilege to be that. So if I have to go on campus, I'm not complaining about it. It's, I'm happy to go and deal with those problems because I can be here the rest of the time. So I guess it just comes down to your personal attitude in that sense.
So as a manager here at Oregon State, I'll just say one quick thing on that is that I try my best to be positive with my crew because my crew's here, but other factions within my department do work from home or they do flex it a little bit, and trying to keep that positive. That's why I said I look at it as being flexible. The employer at OSU, we're flexible, allowing folks if they need to. The tool set is there from work from home and support from home, but my crew is on site. But again, other factions that do impact us do have some remote participants that are home. And as we always say, if you're going to plan a meeting, just to plan a meeting, make sure we have an agenda if you're at home. Don't just fill the hour up with a meeting. I'm sure you've all been there. I get some thumbs up. Ask for an agenda before you accept the meeting.
So like talking about like a fairness level, here at our school, we only have 2 people in our AV department, and we're covering multiple professional schools plus our undergrad. And then we hear people talk like, oh, we do 50 events a year. For some reason, we have a lot of external events that come on site, and we do 50 events in a month with a staff of 2. So there's no chances of us to really be remote. We try to split our time off and be as fair as possible, but we're still working 50 and 60-hour weeks.
Yeah,
So there's no
that's
chance
a,
of remote.
do you not have any work studies or student workers that you
We
can
we
leverage?
have work studies. They're not dependable. Like we have two that are fairly dependable, and the rest they've just no-showed too many events, and I've gotten calls at home and had to drive back in to try to fix problems. And it's, you know, yeah, we're on a steady rotation because they'll work for a couple weeks. We'll say something to them about no call, no showing, and then they quit. And then we have to start hiring again for work studies.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Frank in that sense where I'm not wired that way, Frank. I can't physically let it go that far. But I kind of agree with the thought where you kind of have to let them, there's got to be a leverage there where it says, look, I can't physically be here any more than I am, right? You got to have the work-life balance, and part of work from home, the directives for work from home is getting that work-life balance. I find I put in way more hours at home than I ever did at work, because at work, when it was time to go home, I got in my car and came home, and I didn't look at stuff again until the next morning. When I'm sitting here at home, well, I'm on my computer anyway, and, I'll just check my email again, or, there was that room that was having issues. I'll log in and take a look at it. And, I tend to work a lot more being here than I ever did, sitting in my office, because people would come in the office, you would talk, you'd go to lunch, you do things, where this is more of an environment conducive to just kind of keep going. But at some point, if you guys are not getting enough help, if you're not getting the support that you need, something's got to give there, man. You got to let it go and say, look, we can't do this event because I put in, 50 hours this week. My other workers put in 50 hours this week. We're done. And say, we've got to give some more help.
Yeah, I think Britt wrote in the chat there about that. And yeah, if you want to talk to anyone about that, talk to Britt. She's the expert on that, because she does all the event support at Moravian. I just do the classroom side of it. But I think in terms of also getting back to the fairness topic about who puts in time, who doesn't, I think that too needs to be written out now as part of the job description and the expectations for that job. Because some people can work from home. Like if you're a programmer, you don't need to be in the office, and that's okay, right? If you're an AV person, maybe you do need to be in the office, or at least have coverage sharing, a rotation or something like that, at least some of the time. My job, I would say, is over 90% on site, just because I know, I may have to run out to a classroom, something may be there. And so being the only full-time AV person at a small institution, I need to be there, and that's okay. But I think you run into some issues, I think, where if it's not clearly defined by management of who can work from home and when, and what are those expectations, that's when you start to run into maybe some conflict and some like, well, why do they get to work from home? Why are they doing this? So just having that very open and defined.
I think you're always going to have that. And have any of you experienced, like we experienced, a facilities vacuum? Because our web service people went home. There was no reason for them to be on campus. Our Microsoft administrators went home. A lot of those smaller, or those IT departments went home and vacated their offices. And now there's this space that is open that no one knows what to do with, because they were, guaranteed to these, to these seats that they had. Now there's these vacuum points where these departments are gone.
Agreed, Donovan. That is some pain points you run into once in a while. Again, as you mentioned, you can do a lot from home, and there are times when we're trying to get a hold of some of our folks at our endpoint management, which half of them are here, half of them are away. But you're right, there's some pain points there. But again, keeping that positive take with your staff. I want to emphasize at Oregon State, we're not sitting around here waiting to respond to things. We're also the integrators and installers. Right now, I have my team out. I have 3 team members out doing an upgrade to a final room, which Chris, you'll improve like this, but over and into the final starboard's going away and direct view's going up. But that's 32 spaces. So my staff is out, but I staff them accordingly to where if one of them has to be dispatched to go boots on the ground somewhere, they can do that accordingly. So that's why we're on site, but my programmer can stay home. We only need him on site if we're trying to get into something. But so again, it's the flexibility from the home, but we can get into the inequities and all. I'm over the fact that I pay for a parking pass every year to come to campus, but and Donovan probably doesn't. He probably has a service pass to come on campus from time to time. Yep. But again, flexibility and staying positive with those individuals, because some folks can work from home, some folks are more productive. Obviously, the flexibility of the balance of home and work life, we've all really emphasized that. I think going through the pandemic taught us that we can be more flexible, we can be more agile. But again, it's setting up and keeping, as a manager myself, keeping my staff positive with those folks that are working from home, that are supporting from home. But my staff knows it because, again, if they need to and they need to stay home, I give them an option. Do you want to work for the day? You can take the day off. But if you'd like to work, I can let you be support from home and help and assist. So flexibility and staying positive.
Yeah, that's great. And we're getting some good questions from the chat. So do you guys utilize cameras at all? I know that's something, I use here. We do a lot of lecture capture. If I don't see an audio signal coming through, I can pop that camera on and look and see, oh, is he wearing the mic? And I can send somebody to say, hey, turn that mic on if you want to be heard. And there's a lot of uses for cameras. I don't know, do you guys utilize them at all?
And we use our PTZ cameras. That's actually one of the first things our students will do when a call comes in. Even though the phone tells them where the call is coming from, we ask the client where they're at. You love when they put the phone down and you hear the steps going to the door and the steps coming back, but it allows them to get some tool sets open. Allows them to get that camera up. That's the first thing we do, is get the camera up, because we're shooting from the back of the room, so we're not shooting the students' faces, but we can eliminate many questions you're going to have. I just heard the microphone. Is the display on? Is the projector on? Who's at the podium? Is it a laptop? You can see those things rather quickly and get quicker to the questions or the incident that's being coming in. So we do use cameras, but we also have postings in class. Let everybody know that we have a camera in the room that is utilized for AV support, and that's where that's at.
Yeah, we're the same way. We're also using Fusion, and we've just added a webcam tab in our Fusion support, so you can go over and take a peek into the classroom. So we can see that the display is on, or if they're standing at the podium, or anything along those lines. So we're in the same boat.
Yeah, that's something we've just started to do because we were a little late to the party with getting cameras in the classroom. We started out by building out most of the audio capability, and now we've slowly been building up the video. So just because of the culture of our institution, didn't really lend itself to lecture capture. We're more of a, hey, you want to be in the classroom here? So like, we don't want to record classes. So we kind of started out the pandemic in a classroom standpoint, a little slightly behind in terms of cameras. But now that we do have them, it's good to hear that some others are also using the cameras for troubleshooting and multiple purposes there. That signage would be an interesting note to hear what you've put up for that, and so that people are aware, like, hey, IT may be looking in on this to assist you, that sort of thing. I'm sure the laws vary state to state, but it's just visual only. We aren't tapping into audio at all, but that's good to hear.
Yeah, here we just started installing cams in all of our classrooms. So we have lecture capture and hyplex. And the first reaction we got from our faculty is that, oh, they're just sitting down there spying on us. They want to know what we're saying all the time. And it's been a battle with our faculty here about the fact that there are now cameras in their rooms that we can see. And
you're not that interesting.
Yeah, because I have so much time on my plate to sit here and watch everything that they're doing.
I saw an inquiry in the chat there about whether anyone is using SIP from their touch panels to communicate back to a support desk. And the answer for myself is we tested it early on, back in the early 2000s. We were playing with it, and we found with the ambient noise and the disruption from that panel or having to get too close to it, we moved away quickly. We did years ago and went to we have ring downs, and they just pick it up. There's no dial-in involved, and it calls direct to our support desk. So that's what we do in our spaces. But we did play with it. We did test it, but not successful, and again, a little too intrusive. And you could listen, Teddy. You could listen in all you want during that.
we talked about it as well, but we're moving away from CUCM. We're moving away from the Cisco infrastructure for phones and going to Teams audio. So that is not a path that we are going to take.
We
Nothing.
haven't done- oh,
Go
sorry, I
ahead,
was just
Craig.
going to say
No,
we
go ahead.
haven't. Yeah. Yeah, I was just going to say we haven't really done anything like that in the classroom, especially with SIP with the because I know some of the touch panels have that built in. We didn't go that route. One of the main reasons was like, well, if it's like a speakerphone, instructors don't want to hear us say like, did you try rebooting the computer first? And so there was a level of comfort of the user interaction there that we just said, no, we're not going to do that. But
yeah, Craig, you always want to use, if people can hear, you want to tell them to use the ONOFF enabler.
that's a good one. I'm going to write that down.
So we had another question come in about satellite campuses. I'm not sure where you guys are situated with satellite campuses, but if you have them, do you have a liaison or some sort of an AV technician there, or how is support working on remote sites? Don, it looked like Donna, go ahead.
Yeah, we have one tech at each of our remote campuses.
Same here. We have technicians at each campus, and they're trained a little bit more into more of the insights and more deeper into the tool sets we use, because obviously they're further away. We do the tier 3 support is how I want to envision that, but we can have them do some tier 3 support as well with that proper training. But again, it's training them up and getting the right staff there and then retaining them, which is the biggest key.
Yeah, we have one remote site that's about an hour and a half away. We have one full-time IT person that just covers anything, whether it's IT, AV, and admittedly, we're still kind of figuring that out because it's such a huge bucket of tasks that, again, we're sort of going with the model of, okay, well, at least you can be our eyes and ears. And then if, we can use those remote tools to help diagnose things further if needed.
I want to point out too that the topic of this is remote support. So our satellite campuses, we have 3 of them, 3 hours, 2 hours, and an hour respectively. But providing those remote tool sets for support was huge in those entities, because even pre-pandemic, those staff members would go home and they still had a tie to their institution at those sister campuses. So having that on the remote tool set to troubleshoot, it actually helped them not have to drive back to campus or move back into town or go there. They were, and they've loved it. They still utilize them to this day. They know that they have that variability. So the remote tools have been huge for us to allow them not to be on their campus for 50, 60 hours a week. They can go home and have a life as well.
Yeah, we've done a little bit of both. We have a technician on one of our campuses that helps with our support, but then like Craig, we have in San Francisco and in Washington DC and Florida and some of our small campuses, it's not that advanced, where it's just somebody who's a generic kind of IT person who does a lot of the main support, and that creates its own problems. Now one of us has to travel and things like that if there's a major issue or installation. So so we've talked a lot about, I think, kind of the conclusion that we're kind of coming to is, remote support is more of a flexibility thing instead of a norm, right? We're always still going to need people on the ground, and I think even doing this kind of work from the office is incredibly valuable for our time. So, I mean, do we have just kind of like final thoughts on moving forward? Do we think we're to continue kind of see that trend where the flexibility kind of maintains? Are we getting new tools? Access to new tools. Are we looking? Craig, you've talked a little bit about moving towards camera support. What are we looking? What are we looking towards? Over the next year or 2 years, in terms of maintaining our remote support models or expanding them?
Well, I think because most of our support is still on site, kind of the lesson learned that I'm taking is that if I can plan to do everything at home, then that allows me to do everything in the office perhaps quicker, have a faster response time to any incidents that would come in. Because if I have to pick up and walk 5 minutes, down the sidewalk or wherever, down the street to a building, like if I can save those 5 minutes, whether I'm at home or if I'm just in the office to do that same task, I think the same tools you would want to put in place to enhance customer service, they also help you to work from home, but they help you to work from in the office. So that's how I'm taking a look at it, and just trying to build that out so that I can respond faster, because ultimately it's about keeping the classroom going and minimizing downtime and just getting the tech out of the way, keeping things moving. And then, if they don't have to call us, great.
Yeah, I think it totally depends upon your institution that you're at. Because there's some of us, like at West Virginia University, we've actually had a directive to expand work from home options. So if you're, you take like UNLV, for example, where Frank is, they want everyone back on campus, and they don't want to move that direction. Where at my institution, we are absolutely going that direction. So I think it totally depends on where you are, what those capabilities are going to be and what that future is going to look like. For us, as we have a directive to work from home more, I think that we're going to be taking advantage of a lot more of the technology offers that these companies are now coming out with that promote work from home environments, the widgets, the gadgets, the things that are, supposed to make things easier for you to work from home, I think are just going to become part of our normal life in that sense. So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, Troy, to kind of mention that here at OSU, we're actually currently in a phase right now. We're trying to consolidate some of our tools into a more conduit area, because obviously some things go into Fusion, some don't. So it's making the tool set easier for our technicians when they are remotely to have unambiguous access to those tools. And also, we're actually working up some materials. We already have workflows on troubleshoots. We have all the knowledge database, but we're trying to condense that down so that no matter who's answering the phone, we're following the same protocol if it's an audio or video issue. And it's really essential for those that go at home, because we want, no matter who's supporting, we want the end user to kind of have a similar experience. Obviously, our rooms can be a little bit different, but we like that intake and that first response to be with a norm, if you will, and not just be all over the board, so that when someone calls in one day, they're getting a completely different experience than they would in another day for a very similar incident response. So, but that's always a work in progress, Troy. You're always trying to improve those tools. I don't think any of us just get something done and say, this is the end all, this is all we're going to do. We're looking for ways to streamline things, improve things, and the main goal is to lessen the impact on instructional time. That's all of our goal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you all made great points here. Craig, I love, just to talk about, well, Don too, limiting instructional time and the amount of time you can save from the office just in saving that walk to class can really be tremendous. Here at Northwestern, a lot of our classes, the majority of our classes are 50 minutes long. So, 5 minutes is 10% of the class. That's a significant loss in instructional time that you can't really afford. And I think, Don, consistency, I really like, that's important. Consistency of use across the campus. It makes it very difficult to kind of explain to faculty, over the phone, what something looks like if you've got 6 different, interfaces that you've got to kind of think, oh, well, which one is in this room, right? So yeah, consistency of design standards. I think that was a big kind of, I think something we can kind of take away from this. Standards are so important. So I guess just kind of give it back to you guys if you have any final thoughts. We've got 10 minutes left. If you got any last minute questions, I'd love to take those. And if we have any final thoughts, and if not, we can obviously jump back to the networking session if we need to.
Well, I want to reiterate what Frank said earlier, because we've done the same thing, Frank. Everything we've done here, I can't say it's organically just grown at OSU. I've been to other institutions. I take bits and pieces from all of you when I go through these conferences. I had the privilege of working with Chris Dechter here for a couple of years. I picked his brain for a while. I've been to conferences with Frank before. I've kind of picked his brain. So realistically, in our profession, don't think that you're all alone as a university. I know we all say that, but please reach out to any of us anytime. And we're there to help each other. As I always say here at OSU, my undergraduate this year might be going to Northwestern for their master's or PhD. We don't know where our students are going to go around, but we want our students to be successful and have the ability to go everywhere. So as a nation, we are one team, even though we're at different institutions. And I do live by that.
I totally agree. That's kind of what HETMA was formed on when HETMA first started. That was what we were building on, is being able to help each other out the most. The one thing I would leave with is that somebody, when I was talking about this in a different conference, somebody was talking about the cost of being able to work from home. Having the pieces of gear, the things in order to do those things. Now, the extreme thing that I showed you guys is $600. If you can get that through your networking team, or if you can roll that into your annual budget or those kinds of things, that's kind of a low cost tool to be able to do some very powerful things remotely. So it's not like you're spending thousands and thousands of dollars to be able to do those things at home. So don't think that cost can prohibit you from doing these things, because there are ways to get around the high dollar costs of being able to work remotely.
Yeah, I'll say too, the collaboration, we're very fortunate to have a really tight collaboration with our network crew. And so they've been they've been great to work with, to allow us and to really give us the tools we need, and dealing with all kinds of, the AV over IP craziness that happens. But most of all, I just want to say thank you to everybody, especially for allowing me to join in the session here and share my thoughts, but more importantly for me to gather information for everybody else and hear what everyone else is doing. It's just been a real privilege to be part of this. And HETMA has been just such a huge just positive in what I've been able to do every day, and just planting seeds of ideas and moving forward. And just really accelerating the continuous improvement process. So it's just been really great. And I just want to thank everybody here.
It doesn't look like we have any more questions. So, I'll just kind of reiterate what everybody else has said. And just first, I want to thank all of our panelists, Craig, Donovan, and Don, for taking out your time and sharing your thoughts with us today. Thanks for everybody who joined and participated, asked great questions. Like Don said, I think we're a collaborative group, in higher ed, but especially with HETMA, we're a very collaborative group. Just come join us at the community. You can always reach me, message me there. I'll drop my email in the chat here as well. I think, just moving forward, just know that, if you haven't been a part of HETMA before, this conference or this organization, you found a very collaborative, helpful group who is, kind of really willing to kind of, give up. We don't keep secrets here. I'm willing to share whatever I'm doing in my classrooms with anybody. So, just thank you for everybody for joining us.
Sign up to be an evaluator.
That too, absolutely. So this session it's going to keep recording. It's going to keep recording, but you can leave and join the networking chat, or you can hang out here and chat too. That's fine. I'm going to drop my email right now.
We're going to be doing the HETMA approved showcase in the networking chat. So we'll be talking to Bose and Panasonic both about their approved products.
As it turns out, I can end it for all, so that's what I'm going to do.